What's up guys, welcome to another interview. Today I have for you a very cool interview with a very good friend of mine. In fact, we actually know each other from high school, and he's an expert in advertising marketing. In fact, he has a bachelor's degree in advertising marketing. And today we just had an amazing interview and conversation about how to build a brand and how to create the content according to that brand, and then how to build a brand and create a fan base with that brand for music artists and in general any creative and any artist that just wants to build in general a fan base and a brand. Because the conversation today was super long, I'm going to be dividing this interview in two parts. So this is part one. Next week I'm going to be posting part two. So make sure to stick also, subscribe and like, turn on the bell notifications to make sure that you don't miss the second part. And once you watch part one and part two, I can almost guarantee that you're gonna have a lot of knowledge on how to build your own brand. So without further ado, let's get right to the first interview. What's up guys, welcome again to the studio. Today we have a very special guest, someone that I've known for a very long time and that I've actually grown up with. We went to the same high school, we share a lot of the same passions. We're both artists and creatives, we both have creative minds. So really excited to talk to Vlad today. Everyone give it up for Vlad.
What's up guys?
So how you doing? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Just bearing with all this quarantine, you know, trying to make up content and stuff.
So turns out Vlad also has some sort of like podcast interview kind of series. So we did two interviews. The first one is in his channel. So make sure I'll link it below. I'll make sure to go check it out. We talked a lot about music, what it is to be how it is to be an artist in the music industry nowadays, like kind of like the general like state of the music industry today and stuff. So make sure to go check him out to check that first part of the interview. And then if you watched it and you're coming back for the second part, then welcome. So tell us a bit about yourself. Like tell the people like what you know and like what's your like expertise, like topic and all of that. Like what do you know within marketing and like your background a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Well, I must start with a little bit before. I was a tennis player, and that's how I met Mark, and we would play tennis together. And throughout my high school, I started realizing that tennis wasn't going to be the thing that I wanted to do my whole life. I was interested in a wide array of things when it came down to creativity. I like doing videos, editing them, you know, posting them. I would do videos about anything, you know, soccer players, whatever. I just like creating stuff. And as we were getting closer to my senior year, I had to kind of start tailor my career towards something. And I thought it was film at first, until I took my first film class, and I decided that it was way too concentrated and narrow for me. And then somebody said, hey dude, I feel like you would fit really well in advertising, because advertising does a lot when it comes to media. You know, you play around with video, sound, radio, graphics, words, you know, you get to play with all these tools, you know? And I was like, that sounds like it's something for me. And so I started studying advertising at the Savannah College of Art and Design, which I just graduated a month ago. And I became an advertiser with a focus on copywriting. Now, what copywriting is writing everything that has to do with sales. So whenever you're trying to get somebody to buy your product, that's when you use a copywriter. You know, we write text that persuades people to take a certain action that will benefit them, you know? So that's what I studied. But within that, everyone in advertising starts doing kind of their own thing, you know? So my expertise and my background offers me not only the capability of playing around with words and using words to generate emotions, but I also have, like you, this side of entrepreneurial and kind of direction of creativity. I like being in charge of the creative process, and I like overlooking the big ideas and seeing strategically the whole playing field. So not so much execution. I like more the planning and the directing and the overlook of everything. Now, that being said, I can play around with copy, graphics, I can make everything. But my expertise is, hey, let's assemble a team. Let's see who has what qualities, and how can I get the most out of everybody, you know?
Exactly. Well, that's really cool that you're mentioning that, because I bet like a lot of people that are listening are basically like music producers and artists that are looking for someone that knows a little bit about everything, like you, to learn like what you need to do to build a brand, and what you need to do to like become a music artist. Because today, you know, a music artist is more than just an artist. Everyone becomes a brand. You see those big names like Billie Eilish, Martin Garrix, like Rihanna, any genre. So they're becoming like companies. They're brands, just like Nike, just like Adidas. And and it's very important that we are able, like, as artists, to create that brand to be successful. So I wanted to talk to you about that. So, you know, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's interview, I wanted to, like, kind of like outline what I wanted to talk about and discuss with you. And I wanted to talk about, like, the main things you need to build an artist brand, right? And the way I see it, there's, like, and obviously you know more about this, but there's, like, 3 main steps. Like, first of all, coming up with, like, the whole idea of the brand, like what kind of brand do you want to be, and what kind of, like, content do you want to create, and what kind of vision do you want to have, and what do you want others to see from you, right? That and then you have to actually create it. So actually create the content, actually, like, build all, like, the process to basically build the whole brand. And then lastly, how to, you know, put it out there and get people to like it and to follow and create an engagement. So, like, an engaged fan base. So I wanted to go over those 3 main topics.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So yeah, let's get right into it. So, you know, as you mentioned, you got into advertising because you saw that it was a better fit than music, right? So one of the questions that music, my bad, than a video. So one of the first question that I wanted to ask you is, like, why did you choose advertising and, like, marketing? What is it that you love about it so much? Like, why do you love it?
So there's 2 different answers. My first answer is why I chose it at that time, and then now I can tell you that it's a different answer. But at that time, I definitely chose it because of the different variety of stuff that I got to do. Like, they told me that you would get to play with a lot of different tools of creativity. You are in charge of creating an idea, so coming up with ideas. Then you're in charge of coming up with a strategy. So kind of like a strategic thinking comes into play, you know, and that it's inherited from sports and all that. And then finally, you got to create it, and you got to find the best way to create it. And sometimes it's so interesting. The best way to create it is not even you. You sometimes have to learn how to have a good eye for talent that's outside of your circle, you know? So that was the reason why I wanted to become an advertiser. I felt like you could play a lot with the tools, and it would give me a chance to learn what I truly loved about the whole process, you know? Yeah. Now, though, in retrospective, tell me.
Well, yeah, go ahead, finish your sentence. Now that's something.
In retrospective, looking back at it, or currently right now, the reason why I love advertising so much is because, 1, it is probably the most persuasive art form of the 21st century. So it's not only, hey, let's make an ad that you're going to see on YouTube and you're going to skip in 5 seconds, is how can we make advertising seem like it's not advertising? And that's an extra challenge because it's selling a story rather than advertising. Yeah. And it's a challenge for me. And whatever is a challenge, it's very interesting towards me. So how can we find a way to make something that everybody hates, something that everybody will not love, but at least will take action after seeing, you know? It's a challenge, and that's why I love it today.
Yeah, that's actually, it fits perfectly to the question that I wanted to ask you, is that a lot of music artists just want to make music and they don't want to have to get into all, like, the, you know, boring kind of marketing. So, like, what would you say to those people that don't want to find marketing or, like, advertising really boring? Like, what would you tell them to like have them maybe enjoy it a little more?
So, well, I feel like a lot of the artists and up-and-coming artists today, I can benefit greatly of marketing in general. Branding has become something that is not only for big companies anymore. Because of the rise of social media and all these platforms when everybody can actually monetize their profile so they can get money out of their profile, that's a business. And even if you're not making money, even if it's just your own brand, you need some sort of cohesiveness. You need everything to fall in line together. Yeah. Now, as a music artist, that's really crucial. Why? Because as we were talking before on your side, there's clutter. There's so much oversaturation within the music industry. Everybody's coming out with a song. Everybody's coming out with their stuff. So it's very hard to tell them apart. Yeah. So the reason why I would say that it is very important and it's something that they should be looking into, you know, marketing services, it's because you want to find a way to differentiate yourself from the rest of the people, right? And that doesn't always mean that you got to go and pay thousands of dollars to somebody. That sometimes just means like make a few Google searches, start your own brand. And then once you gain a bit of traction, let somebody that's an expert come in and tell you, hey, This is the way that we can get your current project, and we can target this people that might want to watch it and send this kind of message. So through marketing, people today that are in the music industry, those people that are using this marketing people and services get a huge jumpstart in the industry just because of their image, you know, just because of their cohesiveness.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I would agree that, you know, learn something by yourself. Don't just like pay so much money for someone else to do it and you're not gonna really understand what they're gonna do. I would say, from my perspective, like get your first 1,000 followers by yourself. Like, be able to start the machine like working by yourself. And then once you know a little bit about it, like get an expert. Once you also have a little more budget on it, and you know that it's something that you want to pursue, and you're willing to invest more money, then spend money on maybe someone helping you.
Yeah, and it's like people believe that. There are also people believe that, hey, if I have a shitty product or shitty whatever, marketing can just save me. And it's not like that. That's why what you said is very important. Make sure that those first followers and that first effort, you do it yourself, because you set the ground for what your true core is. What is your main truth about your brand? You set that up unconsciously when you start developing that brand online on social media. So I agree with that. Yeah, the first few followers you should gain yourself.
Cool. So let's get into like how to, you know, get those few followers by yourself, right? The first step, let's say that let's go back to like me, for example, like 2 or 3 years ago when I was about to finish my first song and I wanted to put it out, right? My song is done. It's time to do the whole advertising for it. What do? I have no idea what a brand is. You know, I don't know who I want to be, how I want to do anything. Like, what advice would you give me for that first step?
So there's different advice out there that comes from different people. Some people will tell you to like start with the basic truth of what you are and what you do. Some people will start like, hey, show emotions. What kind of emotions do you want to evoke? The way I like to start is, what kind of story do you want to tell? Not only through your song, but through your brand as an artist. So all the songs that you create are small bits of story that unite up to make your whole story, you know? So as Mark Feliu or Felium, every single song that you release is going to tell a little bit more about your story. And the way that you present that song is going to be about your story too.
That's
really so the cool. First number one thing that you want to start with is, what is your main truth? You know, like, what is the thing that drives you to make music? And it's kind of the same thing for everybody, you know, like whatever it's my passion and all that. But everybody has a unique point of view in life, you know? So getting that story down, like, what kind of story do I want to portray? Do I want to portray the story of a guy who, you know, was an athlete and then turned producer? Or what kind of story do we want to tell that's going to appeal to people that's not already been done, you know? So once you get that main truth about you, the story all falls in line, you know? The story of your band falls in line. From then on, what you want to do is to get that basic truth and to start implementing in everything that you do. Nothing that you post, nothing that you say, nothing that you ever come up with needs to fall out of line. So let me give you a basic example of somebody that was not a leader and still came up with an incredible campaign, right?
Okay.
Not so much from music, but it definitely applies to music and to people that are not leaders and they're still upcoming. They don't get millions of views and they're still, you know, up there working hard.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what year it was, but the rental company, you know, for cars, Avis, came up with a campaign after they were ranked second in the world as the, you know, rental companies, right? Number one was Hertz. They were number 2. So what Avis did is they played that story. They're like, you know what? That's right. We're not number 1, but we're going to use that as a power to our story. What did they come up with? The people that took care of the campaign, they came up with a campaign that said, we're second, so we try harder and our lines are shorter. So they had this whole campaign that was called We Try Harder. Because they're second place and they want to be first, they're going to try harder than Hertz, you know, so you probably should go with them. And also our lines are going to be shorter because everyone else is going there. So you're going to get your car and you're going to make sure that you're going to have the customer service that you want. And that was insane.
Yeah, smart. They did overtake them?
Yeah, they did overtake them, and you know, there was a game for you know, up and down, but they actually made, it's one of the most famous campaigns, you know, for the classical advertising campaigns. It's crazy. So now that being applied to a music producer, you know, you could be somebody that comes from a background that's not anything to do with music, or you don't have the resources, or you don't have the money to do it. Dude, double down on that.
Use that to power your story. That's so smart.
Yeah, you know, and you're like, dude, I have no tools. I pirate all of my recording things. I do everything. Dude, that's awesome. We're going to take that, what you said right there, multiply it by 1,000, you know? We're going to be authentic. That's step number 2. So once you find your truth, you got to make sure that you always stick to that truth and you're always authentic. Because nowadays, people love authenticity. Like, you know, I don't have the best recording. I'm recording from my computer right now, but whatever I say, I'm not going to hold back. And for music people, that's the same, you know, music artists in the industry, be authentic. The way you speak and the way you are in real life, don't change that for your music or for your image out there, you know, because with the risk of being unprofessional, you're going to gain a lot more fans that are going to love the way you speak and the way you talk about life. And there's a big chance that somebody out there is the same situation as you are. No resources, no money, and trying to make it. So they're gonna feel it in their heart. The authenticity of your words, you can feel it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So once you do that, you know, let's get to the actual mechanics of it. So once you get the truth and the brand and the authenticity of it, what you want to do is you want to make sure that visually and textually, you sound and you look the same. Okay, so if you're going to use colors, use blue, red, or whatever, you're going to have to use those colors all the time. If you're going to use certain languages or certain words from that language, make sure those words are repeated. Why? Because every single time your video is going to pop up on somebody's feed, it's going to be one of the million things they're going to see that day. But if they keep seeing the same banners, the same graphics, the same wording, is going to repeat, and they're most likely going to remember you. So brand consistency, that's what it is called. Maintaining a good brand consistency falls also under being authentic. You know, you have to look the same every single time so people remember you. Oh, it's that dude that has for example, my logo is me with the hair up and with the eyebrow cut. Yeah. And you see the eyebrow and you're like, oh, dude, it's Vlad. Yeah. And you don't even have to listen. You know, I know it's Vlad. And that's what's the main important thing. So that's how I would explain it at a more theoretical level without getting too much into details. But if you do those things, then over time and consistently, right? That's not a one thing. It's not a one-step thing. It's hard work for years and years. If you do that, you're going to build such a strong base that people are going to start following you and appreciating you for that kind of aesthetic that you have, that kind of unique point that you have.
Yeah, that's so cool. But that raises a question though, because you know, as you were saying, like being unique, like I was thinking, like, what artists' music do I hear and I instantly know it's them? An example is this guy called Illenium. I don't know if you know him, but he makes music that is Illenium. He makes like future-based music, but he was able to create a sound that is very unique. Like, it's similar to other artists, but it's very unique. In fact, when you listen to his music, you know, you instantly know it's him, okay? However, he did suffer from a lack of originality, because he released so many albums and so many songs, like 3 different albums, and they were basically the same sound all the way. So how do you battle, you know, being consistency with the same content, but at the same time being original, so you don't lose the aspect of surprise or originality in your brand? You don't want to be a boring, repetitive brand. How do you deal with that?
Right. So that's an incredible question, because I can always use sort of an example from outside of music and within music. So many times brands like to run campaigns that last for years. For example, Chick-fil-A's cows. There's a cow that says, eat more chicken. Like, you know, don't eat the cow, eat the chicken. And that's Chick-fil-A. They have been running that campaign for so many years to the point where it's getting boring. And you don't want to fall into that. Now, there's a lot of brands that have done that for a while and they never get boring. Just Do It from Nike has been around for I don't know how many years.
So many.
Still the most powerful campaign that you can find. So that's a very interesting question, and it's definitely not easy. And if huge agencies haven't figured out a way to do it every time, I'm definitely, you know, not an expert. But from my own experience, you know, because I've worked for agencies and I've worked for private clients for freelancing, and they're always dealing with this kind of problem. How do I maintain brand identity without becoming boring? So what you want to keep in mind is that the main reason why you're doing everything is going to be your story. That's going to be the thing that's going to drive everything. Now, every single time you can innovate in what you do. So for example, as somebody that's in music, for you, for example, you don't only release songs, you also release these interviews, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily music. It's not necessarily building a fan base that's listening to your music, but it's building up an identity and a fan base that's listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you manage, for example, through this podcast or through different forms of content to keep the same message, but deliver it in different kinds of ways and doing different fun things, it's going to work. Like Gary Vee Online, he keeps saying the same thing in each one of his videos. It's always in a different way, in a different example.
Yeah.
And it always impacts, right? So it's the same with music, people. Don't just stick to making music, you know? It's way past that. Like at the beginning of your career, if you only make music, yes, there is chances you're going to make it, but you got to set yourself different from the rest of the people. So make some podcasts, make new songs, make videos, make remixes. I don't know, try to record beats. I know you make beats as well. Doing that, everybody's gonna know, oh, this is Felium, but there's Felium beats, there's Felium songs, there's Felium podcasts. So it's really easy. You have to vary the kind of content and the media that you deliver. Don't get stuck with music only. Music is found everywhere in the world. It's in sound, it's in nature, you know? How do you use that, you know? So always try to innovate, but always stick to your basic truth, you know?
Wow. That's really great advice. But I'm definitely learning a lot, and we're not even like a third done with this interview. And I learned like so much already. Yeah, wow, thank you. Well, like let's move on. We could be talking about like step one forever, but let's move on. Let's say that someone, you know, was able to find their identity. Someone wanted to, you know, like you said, would take into advantage that they don't have any so many resources. They would take that into, you know, they would make that their main like brand, like selling it like I'm an artist that is fighting against the odds, something like this. Now let's say that they have the idea of their brand. Now how do you make it happen? Like how do you go about creating content for social media? Like what kind of content should you start like an account in every social media? Like what kind of content goes where? What kind of content goes on Instagram, YouTube, like Twitter? Like how do you make it all happen? Because we've been talking like theoretically about like building this brand, but how do you make this brand happen?
So in my opinion, if you can, I would just invade the internet with your name. This is what I've been doing for the past 6 years for my brand. I have uploaded stuff that has my name on it to so many different websites, media, text, everything. So you want to install your name on Google. Whenever people search for your name, it better be for you. So going back a bit to the question that you asked me, in my opinion, as a musician, like if you're a musician, if you're an artist, I would aim to target every single major social media there is, not only Instagram and Facebook, right? Let me explain to you how. You can create content that goes on many different platforms without having to spend too much time. For instance, let's say that you record a podcast or an interview with somebody, right? Or you talking by yourself. You get that long form, you get this hour that you can post on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes Podcasts, all these places that you can post them on for free. That's for free that you can post them. Then after that, what you do is you cut them up in small clips with relevant information, and you start posting them on Instagram, like quick videos where people don't want to watch long videos. You know, Instagram is for quick stuff, you know, Instagram TV. So you post a couple of videos there from that as well. Then you share those to Facebook as well. And that's the small strategy. But then you start posting on stuff like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very underrated because everybody believes that that's where you go to like have boring networking with people from your company or whatever. Totally false. The uses of hashtags and the uses of like posting on LinkedIn can actually boost you because people are there with the sole purpose of business. People are looking for people to either hire or work for. And through the postings on LinkedIn, you know, you post one episode from your podcast, you post a link, people are going to start seeing that you know what you're doing, and it adds to your professional profile. So after you do that, you take your every single episode that you have and you can transcribe it, right? There's many tools online that listen to your podcast and they transcribe it. You go in, you edit it, and then you can create even small blog posts from that. Like from what we're talking right now, I could take this right now, the last 5 minutes, cut it up into a segment of text and post it as an article on LinkedIn, make it as a guest post on other people's websites. Like, hey, I'm going to write a post for you for free, you know, and they get content, you get your name everywhere. So my opinion is to invade all of the social media, TikTok, Snapchat, everyone. And if you're scared that people are going to block you or they're going to be annoyed, it's better. They never wanted to do anything with you anyways. Like, don't care. Like, just keep posting and doing it that way, you know? And the way you do that successfully is by always remembering what you stand for and always tailoring that content towards it. You know, my authenticity, my one truth is be authentic. Like, you know, within the authenticity, there's being authentic. And I want that whatever I am in real life to be on screen and wherever I am. So that's what I'm doing. So take that and you multiply that content and you put it everywhere that you can. And it's hard work. I'm not saying it's not hard work. It's hours and hours and hours, but you multiply your chances of being seen by a lot. YouTube, everywhere. Just any social media that's active, post on it.
Wow, yeah, you're right. Definitely. I definitely didn't know like about LinkedIn so much. Like I haven't created like a Felium LinkedIn, and it's definitely something that I'm gonna look into. And it's very like kind of like summarizing. I really like the idea that you mentioned, like taking the podcast as an example, but really any content you can do this with. You can, you know, post like the long podcast on Spotify and podcast like pages, but then cut it up and chop it up for Instagram, and then maybe put like a 30-minute version on YouTube, and then so you make the same, and then you put it in a blog, like the same content, you put it everywhere.
Yeah, and exactly. And sorry to interrupt you, because there's one more part that I forgot. Once you put up all that content, the chances of somebody working within the same industry as you seeing that post is going to be huge. A lot of people are seeing my stuff and they want to, like, you know, from my friend group or from outside, they're like, hey, I want to do a podcast with you. You want to create those relationships, even if it's somebody that has 100 followers. You never know who's going to see it. You want to be able to have a connection with them and write your content on their profile as well. So, you know, I get your podcast, you get my podcast, then somebody else gets my name on their channel, and we help each other and you help each other out. Like, hey, dude, for example, for me as a copywriter, I'm going to write a blog post for yours, like a guest, and you write it for mine. And now our names are on each other's websites. We both increase. Same for a music artist, remix, podcast, whatever. Work with as many people as you can, because the more people that have your name on their platforms, the better.
Cool. Yes. Thank you so much. That's, again, very great advice. I really hope whoever's listening to this is actually taking notes, because there's like a lot of like packed information in this podcast.
And anybody can text me or you as well, by the way. Like, I'm sure that you are open up, but anybody that, you know, my contact information will be down.
Yeah, in the bio. Yeah, cool, in the description. Thank you guys for watching part 1 of this interview. Next week, I'm going to be posting part 2. Again, I divided this interview in 2 parts because it was a very extensive interview with a lot of content, and I wanted to make sure that none of them was lost in a very long video. Vlad, the guy you heard today, also happens to have a very cool podcast. I was interviewed by him and we talked a lot about the music industry and what it is to be a music artist in today's world. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to leave all the links below in the description, so make sure to check that out. Until then, I'll see you next week. Peace!